And recyclers, welcome to Shark Scrapper Live, where every week, almost every week, we take a look at things going on in the precious metals market, industrial metals market. We have a little safety chat, and then we just spend some time talking about whatever else comes up that is important for the week. It is great to be here with everybody. Let's see, who do we have in the house right now? We've got Scrapping Irish, Richard Holbert, Andy Patideux, Roger at CU Scrapping, Electronic Scrapper. Let's see who else. That's about it for right now. I'm sure we'll have some more folks joining as we get moving. Sister G, welcome, Sister G. Nice to have you here. That's an iCast Enterprises. Well, welcome. Haven't seen you in ages, my friend. It is great to see you here. Hey, iCast, are you headed down to Vid Summit this year? I'm not going to be going down there, but I was just wondering if you were planning on heading down there. So anyway, my apologies for not being here last week. David, welcome. Mrs. Shark's 95-year-old father took a fall a while back, and his health deteriorated after that, and it was decided that he needed to go into full-time hospice care. For those of you that aren't familiar with what that means here in the United States, that means that you're nearing the end. And so we went down to Florida to spend some time with him. So it was, the family comes first. These things happen, and I appreciate your understanding. Mike's Meltdown, great to have you here. And it was, the trip back was just horrendous. I mean, it's an 8.5 hour drive anyway. But on the way back, as we got up into South Carolina, Interstate 26, we got behind a huge trailer that was taking up 2 lanes. It had police escort, and it was just podunking along real slow. And it ended up adding over an hour and a half to the trip. And it was just extremely frustrating because there was absolutely nothing that could be done. This thing was just plugging on down the interstate. And I mean, there was a backup of cars, I don't know, 5, 6, 10 miles behind this thing. And of course, you got the people that are trying to weave their way in and out of everybody else because they think they're going to get ahead. They don't, actually nobody knew what was going on. I mean, we're trying to Google it, figure out what's going on, because you expect when you have stop and go traffic like that, you kind of expect that you're going to get to an accident and then it'll open up, or a construction site and it'll open up. But it just sort of kept moving, and we would see the flashing blue lights out in the distance, and like, what's going on? How come we couldn't get there? And so we did eventually figure it out when they pulled over after a while. I guess they have to do that. Eventually, they have to pull out of the way and let traffic open up at some point, because we got past this thing. And it was just like, really? I mean, why are you doing that? During normal travel hours, that one just didn't make any sense. Anyway, trip back was horrendous, but it was good to be able to spend time with father-in-law before he moves on. And I appreciate everybody's condolences. It's very nice of you. So it's these things happen, right? That's life, but it's always sad when it does. iCast, I appreciate that. Yeah. You wish that thing was hauling all that stuff to you. Holy cow, that would have been a serious load of precious metals there. And Jim has joined us. Jim says, hi, packing up 40-pound box of gold connector ends for board sword. First time sending these in. Gold price finally makes it worthwhile. Yeah, very cool. Outstanding. Yeah, well, and you know what? Speaking of gold price, why don't we just get right into it? What do you say? Let's just uh, let's just get right over to the gold price. Now, for those of you that are new, I am not sponsored by AppMex. I get no compensation from AppMex. They are just one of the many online sources that I have used to buy and sell my gold and silver. Gold and silver is a great part of a portfolio to have. And I always recommend that people have their gold and silver in physical assets, bullion type of assets. The paper assets really aren't worth the paper they're printed on. If everybody tried to cash them in at the same time, you wouldn't. You'd be lucky to get anything. If you don't hold it in your hand, you don't own it when it comes to precious metals. So, highly recommend having some physical gold and silver in your possession or appropriately locked up wherever you need to get it locked up. Look at this price, 3,775.95. Holy bajoli, man. So what are we looking at here? We see that gold is up 1.93% for the week, and we'll just draw this line. You can see that. Nice. Early in the week, nice climb up, started falling off a little bit. And then, we've got some volatility going on here, but overall the trend was back up again. So that is really nice. We like to see that. And, while we're here, let's take a look what the gold to silver ratio is doing for the week. And it's going down, and we're going to see why, because I'm going to do something a little different this week. I'm going to look at both gold and silver this week. Because I was gone last week and we didn't get a chance to talk about silver last week, we're going to talk about gold and silver this week. And we're going to see why that ratio is going down. Don't get too excited. It's unless you're a technical trader, there's really not much there for of interest. If we take a look at the month, we see a nice climb for the month, up 10.05% for gold. And if we look at the year, well, look at that, just up 50.28% for the year. And this is such a nice, almost a nice steady climb. Oops, let's get the right button going. Just a nice steady climb coming up here. I mean, we have some variability, as you can see. We dropped down below that straight climb here for a while, peaked up, and then kind of plateaued with a little bit of an upslope, and then we have this recent climb up here. We're going to get back and talk about silver in a minute, but first let's get over here to our trading economics charts and take a look at gold on the trading economics chart. Here we can see that gold remained above 3,750 per ounce on Friday, and nearing the record high of 37.90, despite the rebound for the dollar and treasury yields, as demand for safety offset the outlook for the dovish Federal Reserve. The U.S. presidential administration reignited concerns of restrictive trade policies after planning to impose aggressive tariffs on patent pharmaceutical goods and other medical equipment. Bullion also gained ground after the administration struck a more hawkish tone against Russia by suggesting that Ukraine could recover territory lost since the invasion by Russian forces. Additionally, investors outside the U.S. piled on gold amid lingering concerns that a flurry of fresh debt by the U.S. Treasury and the jeopardy on the Fed's autonomy. What they mean there is, the president has been making noise about forcing more control on the Fed, could erode confidence in the dollar. So, again, it's the thing that is troubling for me anyway, when we see gold prices go up the way we're seeing it. It's because there's a lot of turmoil going on. And it's all of that turmoil and uncertainty that forces or causes investors to go into gold as a safe haven for the most part, and that it's like I always feel bad. I mean, I want gold to go up. I love seeing gold go up because that's good for us. But I feel bad because I understand the reasons why gold goes up, and it's usually not good, from a just general human perspective. You'll also read in this, and you'll hear folks say, they're going to talk about with both gold and silver how the lower interest rates make it better to hold gold. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Essentially, if the interest rates are high and you can make a bunch of money on a bank account or some sort of bank program, then you're going to put your cash, your money, into some sort of bond or bank type investment where you're going to get that interest. When the interest rates are low, you're okay with putting your cash into gold and silver because the holding cost, you're not losing any interest or that much interest. And what you're playing the game on is that the value of the gold or silver will go up considerably over what small interest you might earn had you put that money in a bond or some sort of bank instrument. So when yields go down the way they're expected to go down, you see more people go into gold and silver anyway. And then layer onto that all of the turmoil and confusion and such that's going on in the world right now. And you just see the story for gold. Let's take a look at the candlestick charts real quick here. Now, remember, each candlestick represents 1 day of trading. This is a year. And we could see this climb out right here. Let's zoom in on that climb out because here we pretty much have, it is kind of a plateau, a lot of variability around this 33.25 number. But here in August, we start climbing out. So let's take a look at this part of the year here. So we have this first green candlestick here on August 20, and then they're pretty much green all the way through. We had a couple little red ones in here as the traders sort of said, well, wait a minute, maybe we need to take a pause. And then other people said, nope, we're buying. And then there was like, well, maybe we should take a little pause in here. And then, nope, we're buying again. And, so real nice climb going on here for gold. All right, we're going to go back to the line chart and we're going to take a look at the forecast. And when we look at the forecast, I want to draw your attention to this part of the chart right here. And boy, howdy, that is sweet. Very, very cool. Look at this nice growth line here. And what we're looking at, which is even more interesting, hopefully you will be able to see it in the resolution. We have a pretty steep climb, a short, steep climb, and then it sort of goes into a more reasonable kind of climb there. That is very, very good for us in the scrap and recycling world because that will continue to give buyers like boardsort.com and our scrap yards the motivation to continue to hold and or raise prices that they're paying. Now, let's be clear here. At some point, these buyers, these big industrial buyers like boardsort.com, like your local scrapyard, the other groups around the country or the world, depending upon where you're located, they have to be extremely careful because right now they see that the forecast is trending up, so they're comfortable holding their prices, maybe raising it a little bit, but they're in this world where every tiny sliver of margin is going to matter to them. So if they pay a certain price, the margin on that isn't going to be great for them. It's going to be good for us because, for the most part, But the big industrial buyers, the margin is going to get really tight. And if the market shifts quickly, then they can be left holding the bag. So I can imagine that the folks that set the prices at some of these organizations are really, really nervous and paying very, very close attention because this gold market has just been climbing and climbing and climbing as we've seen. And so the big buyers have had to continue to raise their prices in order to keep product coming in. But at some point, they got to be just really, really nervous. So what do we do? What do we do as scrappers? Well, sell your stuff. Um, there might be there might be some argument because we've got this really small, and I can't zoom in right here, which is unfortunate, but there's this small early peak here before it settles out. So there may be some argument that says, well, maybe hold your material for another week or two before you sell it. But I don't like to play those games. For me, it's a matter of when I have enough material to fill a pallet load or a Gaylord box, then I fill it up and I sell it off. Now, part of that is because I have to keep my cash flow going, right? But it's I don't like to play the game of trying to hit the top of the market because if you're always playing that game about trying to hit the top of the market, well, you're not going to hit the top of the market, and you risk actually losing. So be very, very careful if you try to play that game. All right, well, let's get back here. Now, before I go look at the comment section here again, I want to pop on over to silver because I want to talk about both gold and silver today. So we're going to come back here to the APMEX site. We're going to go over to silver. And silver's looking good too, because right here we are for the year on silver, and we were up 61.3%. Let's see, gold went up in the year. Gold went up 50%, and silver went up a little bit more, so 61.3%. So that's really nice. Seeing silver go up like that. I'm going to back down here to the 1 week look real quick because we see here that just a little while ago we were at 46.53. On spot silver, and that is looking real nice. I am going to be paying very close attention now and getting some of my silver together to sell. Here is why. If we go back over to the trading economics and hit the silver button, we see here silver climbing. We had a nice climb for silver coming up. We see silver rose to 45 an ounce on Friday, 14-year highs on expectations of lower real estate interest rates, tightening physical availability, colluded. Talking about the Fed again. Basically, the same things that drove gold are driving silver prices, right? Plus, silver being an industrial metal, you had the industrial consumption that remains robust with solar electric vehicles, electronics fabrication that drove industrial use above 700 million ounces and still rising. Supply cannot keep pace because most silver is produced as a byproduct of copper, lead, and zinc mining, so output only edged higher in 2025 to roughly 844 million ounces and failed to erase a large structural deficit. Silver Institute forecasts a fifth consecutive annual shortfall in 2025, with demand exceeding supply by more than 100 million ounces. So this is really good news for us. Again, it's the drivers, the reasons for gold and silver going up are, it's unfortunate that so much instability and confusion exists in the world right now, but it's good for us because it drives up these prices. Now, silver, unlike gold, is an industrial metal. I mean, gold has some industrial uses, but not nearly as much as silver. And silver is a huge player in the current electrification world. And as we're going to see when we talk about copper in a little while, there have been some supply issues. And this is part of this discussion where they're saying that because most silver is a byproduct of copper, lead, and zinc mining, and copper mining has taken some hits here recently, that's reducing the amount of silver that's being produced. There was already a deficit of silver being produced in the world. So the industrial demand for silver has already been exceeding what the world has been producing every year. So this is just going to continue to tighten the supply, and that's going to keep driving the prices for silver up. So let's see, what does trading economics believe the forecast for silver is going to look like? Well, very much like gold. Very much like gold. We see a small, an early on near vertical rise, followed by a little bit of flattening out in that curve. Now, again, I don't read a whole lot into the specifics. I look at the trend of the curve, and the trend of this is really good for us in scrapping and recycling because it's going to continue to keep the prices stable or going up for any of our material that could be silver bearing, which can be residual value in many of the things that we sell as gold bearing. So the value add for us here is that silver is going to continue to go up. And they're looking forward, they estimate that silver is going to break 50 sometime in the next 12 months. So, you know, we're looking really good here from the scrap, from our scrap and recycling world for the prices of gold and silver. And I have my general rule of thumb is that for my silver, I sell it. I'm in the selling window right now, and if it goes over 50, then I will definitely be selling some of my silver. So I will be paying very close attention to what's going on. If we look at in the silver world, if we go look at all the way back here to the mid 70s, you know, we can see that we are quickly closing in on this record peak here that occurred back in 2011. And that's going to be real nice when that happens. Now, here's one of the things that I would caution everyone, and that is that if you don't have a lot of silver right now, I would be very, very cautious in an approach to purchasing silver right now. So let's go back here to the forecast. It looks like the forecast is for silver to get up to around 50. So it could go up another $4 an ounce from where we are right now. The issue is, what is the premium that you're going to pay for that silver that you might buy? And can you recover that premium when it's time to sell? Now, if you're buying something like generic rounds and bars, the premium will be quite a bit lower. And let's just go back over here to the APMEX site, and let's just take a look at some silver products here. You know what? Let's just see what's on sale. And 1 ounce secondary market. So this is on sale, and what are we looking at? 47 if you're buying 500 plus. Most of us are going to be in this range here, where we're buying in the range of $48 to $50. So you can see that you're not going to have a whole lot of room to wiggle here. if you bought 20 ounces and you paid $48.50, let's say you wrote a check and you spent $48 an ounce, and then you're going to turn around and sell it for 50. That's a really tight margin that could fall apart fast. So my caution is to be very, very careful. A lot of people, they get this, and it happens in the stock market all the time. It's like they see the prices going up, they get FOMO, and so they start, they go in and they start buying silver, or they buy some gold because the prices are going up, the prices are going up, and it turns around and they're losing money on it. So don't panic buy. If you have silver and gold in your possession right now, be thinking about your sell price and how you want to play that. The last time silver got to around $50 an ounce, I sold half of my silver holding, and because I was buying in the mid 20-ish, it meant that I had basically, all of my silver was free at that point because I sold half of it for about twice what I paid for it, right? And maybe we'll get to that point again here. The prices will eventually come back down again. They always do. You saw that. We see that here when we look at these long-term charts. When we go out, we see that there were people probably in here that said, "Oh, it's going up, it's going up, it's not going to turn," and it comes down again. So prices will eventually turn around and come back in the other direction. So please try to control your FOMO, and don't panic buy, and also don't panic sell. Plan your sell based on how much you have, what you want to get out of it, and try not to let the emotion get hold of you when it comes to this stuff. All righty, well let's see what kind of comments do we have going on here. I've been prattling on for quite a while, so I want to see what folks have had to say about gold and silver, and we'll see who else has joined us while I've been chatting. I'm going through the comments, trying to figure out where I was. Jim is talking about his gold backs, okay, and the premiums. Yeah, you got to watch out. That's what we were just talking about that. Richard's gold is all sitting on the shelf from his e-waste, not a bunch right now. He sold what he had last month. He's got about 4 grams right now. Cool. Okay, we've had some autocorrects going on there. Yeah, that happens. Oh man, I tell you what, I have had autocorrect hell this last week in things. It was just ridiculous. Jim's talking about what he does with his gold backs, using them for barter. So that's cool. Yeah, barter is a good way to do things. If you're, depending upon what you're trading in and things like that, bartering can always be a good way to exchange value with each other. Oh, Jim, I hear you, man. I hear you. Yeah, those were the days. Some of my silver was in the teens, but most of my silver was mid 20ish. So yeah, those were certainly the days there for silver. Roger's saying that he thinks at 50 he's going to sell about half of what he has to fund his expansion. Yeah, Roger, I'm thinking the same thing, man. I've got some equipment that I want that I really want, and I've been saving for it. But at 50, I could get a pretty good slug that I could use to put towards future expansion. And it's a good thing to do with that money, right? Because there's always the question of, well, if you sell your gold, what do you do with it, right? I mean, now you've got this cash. What do you do with the cash? So it's always good to have a plan for what you're going to do with that cash. Now, in some cases, you're going to set that cash aside and wait for the prices to come down and then buy back into the market again. But in the case of, well, Roger and I, we've got some things that we want to spend that money on for the business. So that's pretty cool. Um, Richard gets some silver from his gold recovery as well. Yeah, there's going to be some silver in that stuff that you're working on. So, uh, yeah, Richard, I'll do a thing on rare earth minerals at some point. I've talked about them occasionally in the past, so I'll make a note. Maybe next week we can talk about rare earths because that's another interesting discussion to have uh, for our market. Mike, so I was just kind of talking about that just a minute ago. Uh, I didn't see your question, but I would probably, if silver gets to 50, I've got some equipment that I want to buy. So I would probably be using the cash from that sale to help me pay for some of the equipment that I want to get, which hopefully would then let me expand the business and invest in some efficiency at the shop. So that would be the plan there, and then some of it would be set aside to rebuild the stack again as when prices come back down. Richard said he prefers keeping cash on hand. That said, he has a wife. Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. Don't tell her. Don't tell her, man. Just stick it in a. Oh, I'm not going to go down that road. That's just that's between you and your wife. Patrick Williams, welcome to the show. Great to have you here, man. Always good. Andrew Powell, hey, welcome from New Zealand. I think Andrew gets the award for being the person farthest away and having to wake up earliest in the morning to join the show. Um, uh, And Mike's got a good point here. Remember that when everyone is selling, premiums will go down, but you'll likely sell below spot. So when everyone is buying, premiums go up, and you'll likely get more on spot. I mean, that's just part of the game. So that you got to factor those kind of things in as you're making your decisions on what you want to do. Um, let's see. Jim's asking the question. Am I correct in remembering that you had a video at one point on? Yes, yes, I do. It is in my. Uh, I did do a video about that. And if you send an email to me at sharkscrapper@gmail.com, I'll try to get the link for you and help you find it. It was a little while ago, but yeah, if you can't find it, just send me an email and I'll help you find it. Steve, great to have you with us. A new person in the shiver. It's great to have you on board, Steve. Look forward to more of your comments and having you with us more. Okay, so our safety note for this week is a little bit different. We've got a twofold safety note here. The first one is for my friends down in Florida, South Carolina, and over on the east side of North Carolina, please pay attention to our two tropical systems. We have Umberto and what's going to be Imelda. So Umberto's no big deal. I mean, that's just out here in the Atlantic. It's making the salty ocean fresh and giving the fish something to play in. And the one that we've got to be a little bit careful of is right here. I'm going to pull up the satellite, and you can see what we have going on here. By the way, this is the WeatherWise app. It was introduced to me from Ryan Hall, y'all, who's a great meteorologist. His channel is fantastic. I highly recommend that you check out Ryan Hall, y'all's channel to stay up on all things weather. The guy really knows what he's talking about. So it's definitely a great place to get your weather updates. Anyway, so for our friends down in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, none of us are probably going to have an issue with either of these systems because you can see, and here I'll go over to the National Hurricane Center. We'll pull up Umberto real quick. You can see that Umberto's track has it pulling back out into the Atlantic here. So, unless you're planning on a cruise to Bermuda, you're probably not going to have any issues. Let's go back here to Tropical Depression 9 and look at that forecast. And what you see is that it kind of heads up north, and then all of a sudden it just hooks a right and takes off and could be an issue for Bermuda. So I'm going to go back to WeatherWise and help everybody understand that, because what's going on here is as Umberto tracks on up here, and let's get that a little bit bolder here. As Umberto tracks up, this Tropical Depression 9 is being kind of pulled and felt by Umberto. And so when Umberto then pulls off into the Atlantic, that's when it could pull 9, if it becomes a tropical storm or hurricane, out with it. But here's the thing that I urge everyone to be careful of. When two tropical cyclones are interacting in this fashion, when the more powerful storm makes its recurve and departs the area, that frees up the other system to modify the environment or do what it wants to do in a certain sense. Now, there's a very strong ridge that's coming down in place here that'll be down into the U.S., and that will, in all likelihood, even without Umberto, steer 9 or Imelda off into the Atlantic Ocean. Just pay attention to it, okay? Don't get too worried, but please pay attention to it until it actually makes the recurve and heads out into the Atlantic. Just check into it every once or twice a day, so that you're don't get caught by surprise if something weird happens. Because when we have these interactions, weird things can happen with the storms. The other safety note that I want to give real quick here, this one was, I saw a couple of, this one was actually, it wasn't Mike this week. It was some other folks that I saw videos on, and I saw these people. They were like, "Gee, I wonder how hot that is." And they're taking the palm of their hand and bringing it up close to the thing that they want to see how hot it is. Always use the back of your hand. If you're not sure how hot something is, use the back of your hand to not put it on, of course, but as the back of your hand gets closer and closer, you'll start to feel the heat on the back of your hand, and you'll get an idea of how hot something is. The reason for using the back of your hand is so that if something happens and you do get a severe burn, if you get a burn on the back of your hand, well, you can stretch the calluses and the uh, uh, that could be left behind. I mean, if you got a burn and you had scarring and scar tissue from the burn, you can over time stretch that and still have functionality of your hand. But if you get a bad burn on the palm of your hand or on the inside of your fingers, it is very difficult to close those calluses and those scars if you've been injured that way. So anytime you're going to feel for the heat of something, whether it's a burner on a stove, God forbid you're ever in a fire and you need to decide if there's, should you open that door or not, always use the back of your hand. It could save you the functionality of that hand if things go really bad, really fast. So just a quick little safety note there. Alrighty, now we are going to get back over to our industrial metals now. And our industrial metal for this week, we're actually going to talk about two because remember, I kind of owed you two discussions this week since I wasn't up last week. So our first discussion is copper. And those of you that have been here for a few months now, you saw this dip and then this slow climb coming out of that dip. We've talked about that. Here we had that the dip in copper back when the U.S. administration was unclear about what was going to happen with copper tariffs. So there was this, and then they announced that, well, we're not going to tariff the pure copper, the copper ore, the copper anodes, but we're going to tariff products that have copper. And so copper prices crash, and now they've been slowly climbing back out of that crash. And of course, we can see all the volatility that you kind of expect as a market is trying to decide how quickly the prices are going to climb back out. We see that in the discussion here on trading economics, the copper futures climbed to a near 2-month high. Here's where we were talking earlier when we were talking gold and silver about where the gold and silver comes from. Well, if we look at the this discussion we have after the Freeport McMullen declared force majeure on an output from its Grasberg mine in Indonesia. Some of you may recall we talked about this a couple weeks ago. They had a terrible accident at the mine. A number of miners died, others were injured, and that has shut down operations there. And so they're going to slowly start getting operations going again. But that was the world's second largest copper source that was shut down for a while. Then there was also some trouble in Chile at a mine, and that has been causing problems with copper supply. So when you see these big mines cut the copper supply, then that's going to drive up the prices, right? So and right here they talk about compounded by Hyundai Minerals suspension of operations at its Constancia mine in Peru. I'm sorry, I said Chile, I meant Peru. Sorry about that. Due to protests, and that mine constitutes about 3.2% of the global mine. So we've got a lot of production issues going on with copper. And because, as we talked about, silver is one of the byproducts that comes out of copper mines. So, that's where we're seeing some of the issues on silver inventory as well. So we should expect to see copper prices continue to rebound. And let's go ahead and take a look here. Oops. It helps if you push the right buttons. So sure enough, we see that the analysts are looking at copper to make a nice climb. I saw a comment earlier here where one of you all were talking about a copper spike. And we can see, look really close here, you see early on a near vertical part of this climb, and then it goes into a more stable part of the climb. So this may be a case, excuse me. This could be a good case for holding on to your copper for a little bit, unless you absolutely have to sell. Because when we see the potential for this kind of very near vertical climb on this copper price, followed by a nice, what looks like sustainable rise in copper pricing, there's a good reason for us as scrappers and recyclers to say, you know what, maybe we ought to hang on here to our copper, because uh, you're not risking that you're going to lose that good value. If what we were seeing in the forecast was, and I'm not, this is just if we saw this go up and then start to come back down, we would have reason to be a little more concerned. But when we see a near vertical climb followed by a more reasonable climb, then that is a good signal that says hang on to your copper, unless you absolutely have to sell. Hang on to your copper and watch for that peak. And then you can think about selling as that peak sort of settles out into a more reasonable climb, because you're not risking the loss because the market, there's nothing to suggest that that market is going to turn around suddenly and drop fast. Now, you need, of course, to pay attention to your yard, because your yard, depending upon the contracts that they have, their prices may not adjust much, because so much depends on who they're selling to and what prices they're getting from the contracts that they have. Now, when we see drastic changes like this, though, we also see stories where mills adjusted their contracts at the last minute and went back and rebid contracts. So you really, really need to be paying attention to what your yard is doing. But if ever there was a time for me to suggest that scrappers and recyclers hold their copper and watch for those prices to come up, this is the time. And I don't do this very often. I'm always very nervous about a recommendation like this, but I feel pretty good about, and I will be doing this myself. I will be holding on to my copper here for a bit, and we're going to see what happens with these prices. Now, why is this something that a lot of us can do, even if we're small businesses? Because we're also getting a pretty good slug of money for our e-waste right now. So I can afford to not have the cash flow for my copper products, because I'm getting really good cash flow for my e-waste products that allows me to hold some of that copper back and try to take advantage of what could be a nice rise in the copper market. Again, you have to decide what makes the most sense for you as this market plays out. But I would say give yourself some thinking towards hanging on to your copper, because you've got some opportunity here to see those prices come up. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hang on to my copper and see what happens. Now, for me, this is kind of weird because, we're up here in the mountains, Western North Carolina. Prices don't change a lot at our yards here. So I don't really expect a whole lot of change from my local yard, but there might be a little bit. That comes out of it. So we'll see how that one plays out. If you're closer to a more industrialized area, you may see faster changes in copper prices that you can take advantage of. Oh, let's see. What kind of discussions did we have on copper before we go to our next industrial metal? La, 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 la. All right, let's see. Yep, there you go, Mike. You can tell you're a sailor. That good old Navy training coming at you there, isn't it? Um, and of course, Richard throwing his wife into the fire. She must be a pretty tough woman, Richard. I tell you what, man. Yeah, Jim. Jim, this is exactly the concern with with grabbing hold of with this part of the hand. Um, that's a that's exactly why in the Navy we train sailors to test the bulkhead or the hatch with the back of their hand before they grab anything. So yeah, that's a great example. Great example there. And I'm sorry that they're dealing with that because that's rough. Um and Richard's got a few hundred pounds waiting for his waiting to sell for the prices to go up. The other thing that is playing out here is the strategic reserve that I've always told people to hang on to. My strategic reserve is going to be a nice chunk of change here. So if you've been following that process of keeping, at least 10% of your good copper behind, you're going to be able to make your payday on it. E-Waste Jill has joined us. Kerosene cucumbers. That's a most interesting name. Can't say I've ever had one. Can't say I want one. Welcome to the show, though. Great to have you here. um, uh, and Richard, this is a really good point too. It's very different when you're a hobby scrapper from being a small business owner. Folks like E-Waste Mike and I that are running a business, we have bills we have to pay, whether it's lease, rent, insurance, the bills to the county, or utilities, those kind of things associated with the business. Whereas a hobby scrapper, you're not worried about those kind of things. So it's a very different financial decision that goes into play there as well. And Ed Weber's in the house. Ed, welcome. Great to have you here. Bear Bright up a little in East Tennessee, 380 a pound. Very cool. Very cool. I'm hoping that my prices will be up a little bit go up as well there. Electronic scrapper. I'm holding on to what little copper I have. You're in no hurry to sell. Yeah, that's cool. There's also nothing that says you have to sell just because the prices are going up, right? I mean, um, I'm not touching it, Richard. I'm not touching that one. Oh man. Oh man. All right. Well, I want to get over here to our other industrial metal that I want to talk about this week: scrap steel. Now, unfortunately, but for reasons that make perfectly good sense, trading economics doesn't provide as much of a discussion for scrap steel as they do for gold or silver or aluminum or copper. Because the markets for scrap steel are so variable. Um, if you live in a more industrialized city or near one, where there's mills that need scrap steel, your price fluctuations will be faster and you'll usually get paid more. If you're out in the boonies like I am, then your prices don't fluctuate as much and you don't make as much. So there's so many variables involved in the whole scrap steel market that it's hard for an organization like Trading Economics to build strong and recurable models that actually have any value at predicting what could go on. So they run the numbers based on the contract for differences that are being tracked out in the world, and essentially what we can see going on for scrap steel. This is a 1 year look, and so you can see early in the year. Let's make that a little bit bigger. So we can see early in the year, scrap steel kind of climbed up here. Then we have this drop off going into May. And then we've got a general climb out from May through mid August ish. But there's a lot of variability around that climb out, as you can see here. Then around mid August, it drops off. And here we are sort of tooling along at this 338.50 a ton. Now, again, your local prices are going to be probably very different from this. For instance, for me, my prices have been pretty much stable all year. I mean, almost no change whatsoever, maybe a penny. So all this, I didn't see any of this variability that was going on at my local yard because of where we're at. So, and you may not have seen this either. But I think from the perspective of, what do we do as scrappers and recyclers when we're in this kind of market? Hey, sell your steel. Shred, scrap steel, heavy melt steel. For me, it's the cases from the computers that I'm taking apart. I have to get rid of them anyway because they just take up space. So if I make any money at all on them, great. That's a little bit of added bonus for me. And that's the way it is for a lot of scrappers. You're taking stuff apart, you end up with a bunch of shred, so you sell it. Keep moving your shred steel. Don't let it take up a lot of space, and just keep it moving because there's really no other reason. There's nothing else to do with your shred steel. It's not like we're going to see some huge rebound. And so what? You'll get plenty of more shred steel if the market does rebound. So I would say just keep selling your steel and go on from there. All right. Before we wrap up, I want to do one more thing here. Before we head over to Ireland, I want to go see what Salvager 2 is up to. So here we are on the Shark Research Foundation website. We're going to go over to shark tracking. Oh, it's spinning. Come on. Man, I tell you, I've never been this close to a tiger shark, and I hope I never am getting, and I hope I never do get that close to a tiger shark. At least not that I've known of. Here's the live shark tracking part of the website, and we're going to go down here, and we're going to click on this red species white shark. That is Salvager 2. So this is the shark that we adopted. And we see that she was tagged over here, and then she headed out, and then she came back, and this has me a little bit concerned here. I'm going to zoom. Oops, nope, I'm going to zoom in, not out. So now, I'm not going to read too much into this. We'll see if we get subsequent hits on Salvager's tag. There's errors built into these tags. Remember, these are relatively small tags on the back, on the dorsal fin of the shark. So there's pretty good error. Not a big deal when they're out in the open ocean. Those errors don't matter a whole lot. She could be swimming around in here, and it looks like she's here. or she could be here. Let's zoom in a little bit more. She could be coming up in the bay here looking for something to eat. She could be anywhere around here, and it might look like she's here. So I'm not going to read too much into this. And Dr. Hammerslag has been really good about letting me know when something doesn't look right. So we'll see if we get another hit on her that's not on land. Remember, we are the land sharks, not Salvager 2. And so we are the ones that will be tagged on land, whereas she will probably get back out here in the water somewhere at some point, and so we can see what was going on there. So this is very cool, and I want to thank the folks that have been signing up to the Shiver, the Shark Scrapper membership on YouTube. Remember, if you join at the Great White Shark level, you will get to submit names for the next time we adopt another shark, and I'm hoping that we'll adopt another shark before the end of this year. So we'll see if we can get enough money together before the end of the year here, because I take donate any donations that people send that they say please put this towards the shark. All of that goes towards the shark, and then the regular profits that I get from the channel through the sale of scrap and AdSense and those kind of things. A portion of those profits gets put towards that account as well. And when we have enough to support another shark tag, then we do. So, Great White members of the Shiver, you will get to submit names again for consideration. So be thinking about that. Hopefully that'll be before the end of the year. And the other members of the Shiver get to vote on it. So there's a lot of fun there associated with the shark tagging part as members of the Shiver. Plus, as one of our members found out, Geek Shark is there to help you build some spreadsheets to help you track your scrap. So lots of fun going on there as well. It has come to that time when we must journey across the Atlantic Ocean and join our friends Scrapping Irish and our other members over in Ireland. So I do have redirect enabled, so when I can't turn off this live stream, you will be automatically redirected, assuming you have autoplay enabled, to Scrapping Irish over in Ireland. If you do not have autoplay enabled, then please go to the YouTube site, type in Scrapping Irish, and look for the live stream and join us over in Ireland. It's always a lot of fun. I will see you all over in Ireland.